in September and October, every episode of my YouTube channel is going to feature one of your songs.
I couldn't. I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
That's what David wanted.
Blood, I was to find, was a necessity as well.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. I am the monster that breathing men would kill. I am Dracula.
Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It means it's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead, but not just any episode, it's an October episode. For those of you that have been following me for a while, you know that October is when we step away from the vampires, maybe, and talk about what I want to talk about, okay? So far this year, we have talked about ghosts, We've talked about our favorite movies. We have talked about, what else did we talk about? I'm blanking on my own episodes. Last week we talked about we talked about werewolves. Werewolves. Last week was paranormal crimes, which everybody really liked, and someone even said they'd love to see a part 2. So I am going to make sure we do a part 2 because I also had a lot of fun with that episode. And today we are talking about exorcisms. Now, before we get into all that, if you're not following me on Instagram, this is where you get to see all of the stuff I'm up to. It's the Beautiful Dead podcast on Instagram. And that's where you get to see not just my events, but also my workouts, my random shenanigans around Pittsburgh, any impromptu trips I decide to take, whatever. It's all on Instagram. So that's where you need to find me. The new book has been out for a month now, and I'm getting ready to get numbers, so I'm pretty excited for that. Speaking of the new book, this episode drops the day after my only Pittsburgh book signing. So another reason to follow me on Instagram, because if you want to go have a copy of the book autographed and you're in Pittsburgh, I don't really do Pittsburgh events anymore. So if I decide to do one, it's going to be posted on Instagram, and that's how you'll find out. Next weekend, I'll be at Vampa, the Vampire Paranormal Museum in Philadelphia. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then I have some things planned while I'm in Philly. So make sure you're following me to see all that stuff. And then the weekend after that, I will be in the French Quarter for the Vampire Masquerade Ball. You're definitely going to want to see pictures, because not only will I be in the French Quarter for the Vampire Masquerade Ball, but the day prior is Halloween. So I'll be wandering the streets of the French Quarter looking for vampires on Halloween. So you'll have to follow me to see what I'm dressed as, which I'm very excited about. And follow me to see my Vampire Masquerade ball gown, because I just tried it on and I am obsessed with it. I love it so much. So make sure you're following me. Okay, so we are going to talk about exorcisms. Can I just be clear? This is just a little dip. Okay, I'm not doing a big, huge history lecture on exorcisms. If you want a thorough lecture on exorcisms, go to the Vatican, take a college course. That's not what we're here for, okay? We're just here to have some fun little spooky discussions about spooky things that I like to talk about. So we did the werewolf episode, and then we did the paranormal crime episode, and we talked about, and prior to that, I did haunted movies with Jacob Gibbons, and we touched on exorcisms in a lot of those. And I was just like, I want to do more about exorcisms. Like, I really want to look into this. So here we are, a little dip. If you want more on exorcisms, I'd be happy to do a part 2. Let me know. But I think this subject, we just need put a toe into, right? And then we're going to jump to other things. Oh yeah, next weekend, we're doing the mommy and daddy of vampires. We're doing Vlad Tepes and Elizabeth Bathory, which I'm very excited about. So we'll get back to vampires next weekend. But for now, let's talk a little bit about casting out the demons, all right?
The water of your word. We say no more, devil, no more. Say it, boys and girls, in the name of Jesus. You know exactly what you need to repent of. Name it. Name it out loud.
Now, believing that evil is behind all of humanity's bad deeds is not exclusive to Christianity or Catholicism, okay? If you go all the way back and you look at any culture, men's bad deeds have been blamed on witches and succubi and Eve. The list is endless. There's always something that made you do something bad, right? Demons in some form have been the scapegoats since the dawn of time. And the belief in these entities span so many belief systems, which means that the people pointing the fingers at the evil spirits also needed a way to get rid of these nefarious beings, right? Enter demonic expulsion or exorcism or whatever you want to call it. Looking for early evidence, we're going to go to the Bible, because you know we gotta. And we get the story of King Saul, who was being plagued by the spirit. Now, you can go back and say, are we talking about depression? Are we talking about an actual evil spirit? But the way they describe it is him being plagued by a spirit. And then David plays music that honored God and that sent the spirit away from Saul, and he brightened up and everything was good. So that's an early sort of recording about something getting rid of evil spirits. Then we see a Jewish story. This is from either the 3rd or early 2nd century, and this is in the book of Tobit. And I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but in this book, there's a demon who's in love with this girl, Sarah. And so anyone who shows Sarah affection is murdered. And then there's this guy named Tobiah, and he is supposed to marry Sarah. So obviously that's a problem because anybody who gets close to Sarah gets murdered by the demon. So the angel Raphael tells him, get the heart and the liver out of this fish that we caught, burn it, lay out the burning ash in the bridal chamber, and this sends the demon fleeing, and then the demon is captured and imprisoned by Raphael. So another time where we get to see like rituals, right? By the 1st century AD, Judaism had a pretty tight ritual for expelling demons. And we know that Jesus performed many, many, many exorcisms in the Bible. I remember very vividly being told the story about this person who was plagued by many, many, many demons, and Jesus cast all the demons into the pigs, and then the pigs went and killed themselves. So these stories have been around forever. But exorcisms, they've been called different things in different cultures, but every culture seems to have some form of a way to cast out evil. Even in paganism and witchcraft, there are rituals for banishing or preventing negativity. So please know, I am not judging anybody. I'm not attacking anyone who wants to expel something from their life that they believe is negative for them, okay? But what I want to tap on is kind of where this stuff gets dangerous. So the exorcisms we know, like the ones that are popular, they became popular in the Catholic Church in the 1500s. So we're going back 500 years. So in the beginning, priests would use this phrase, Vede retro Satana, and that was, go back Satan. And they would scream it out, and that's what it would expel demons from whatever human was being possessed. And then in the 16th century, the Ritual Romanum comes out. So it's a handbook, right? So very much like the Malleus Maleficarum, which we talked about in the witch episode last year. You know, that one was the handbook for how to recognize a witch, how to kill a witch, blah, blah, blah. So the Ritual Romanum, we're going to call it the Roman Ritual, was this like manual. It was a tool in your exorcist tool belt, right? And so it had the rites of exorcism, and it made more of a process out of it. So it had more of like a structure, it had more of a ritual, it was more of like a step-by-step. Interestingly, at the same time, there was already people who were kind of starting to question the whole demonic possession thing. So in the 1590s, there's this 20-year-old French girl, and her name is Martha Brosier, and she was a young person who was possessed. She spoke in a demonic voice, she convulsed, she darted her tongue around like a serpent, she rolled her eyes into the back of her head. So the family decided to take her on tour, and they had people pay to watch her thrash around. So finally the king was like, we need to do something. So we're going to exorcise her. So he sends out this high priest who's throwing holy water on her and reading Latin scripture, and this sends her into screams of agony. However, it was an experiment. So, unbeknownst to the family or the possessed, the water was not holy, and the book that they were reading in Latin was just poems. Plus, the water that they had been giving her to drink throughout this exorcism was holy water. So she was drinking holy water, no reaction. Having holy water, which was just normal tap water, thrown on her, and this would send her screaming. So it turns out that the king was actually trying to prove that possession was not real. And he was kind of trying to challenge the church and say, like, they are using scare tactics to scare people into obeying them. And this is sort of the first time that we have like a recorded experiment. So we have a recorded scientific process that has been applied to the question of faith or good or evil. Now, not much has changed in the last 400 years, right? The belief in the battle between the light and dark is still very, very, very strong. And faith is still used to fight what is perceived as satanic forces. And because it is so often featured in horror and in mainstream media, it's led to this like almost popularity. The idea of an exorcism is now very popular. And as recently as 2017, the Pope told priests, don't hesitate to call on an exorcist if you think they're needed. And in 2018, the Vatican invited 250 priests from 50 countries for a week-long study to recognize demonic possession and learn what to do about it. And today, people are still seeking out exorcisms or prayer as ways to rid themselves of evil spirits that they believe are inside of them or causing chaos in their lives. You know, I hear a lot of times where people are like, clearly this is spiritual warfare. You know, Satan is attacking me because I am trying to bring honor to God, and this is why things are going wrong in my life. And so they use prayer to try and break these the satanic attack on their life. So what is the problem? What's the controversy, right? Well, like anything, extreme belief can lead to some blind action that is very, very dangerous. And if you saw last week's episode, then you heard the story of Annalise Michel, who died as a result of extreme exorcisms. Now, she might be the one that stuck with me the hardest, but she is one of countless stories of things like this happening. So, a 25-year-old woman and mother named Vilma Truijo, maybe, lived in Nicaragua when she started to see things that weren't there. She was talking to herself, she was talking to phantoms, she was speaking in riddles. Like, she told her sister, if I get pregnant, I'll give birth to a snake, not a baby. Up until that point, reportedly, she had been completely normal. Healthcare would be a day's walk for them. So if they wanted to get her to a hospital, it would be a 12-hour nonstop walk. So they turned to the church, and they get a 23-year-old named Juan who said he knew what to do. And he and his followers take her to a remote cabin and restrain her. And for days, she was starved as they tried to expel the demons. And then one day, one of them is told by God to burn her to get the demon out. And they were like, yeah, that sounds like holy orders. So they take her out to a tree and they tie her up and they build a fire pit around her and they lit it. And inside the cabin is her 15-year-old sister, who is hearing her screaming as the church members tell her, don't worry about it because your sister's going to be saved. This girl's praying, hearing her sister scream. Hours later, someone came in and said, you need to go get help. So then she had to run for help, which she did. She found her family, and then Vilma's father led the rescue only to find his daughter naked, 80% burned, and barely conscious, begging for water. So her family carries her 12 hours to a hospital, who transferred her then to a bigger one, but it was too late. She did not survive this. Now, this was 8 years ago. Not 80, 8. 8 years ago. And I know what you're saying. Oh, that was Nicaragua, right? That was a remote jungle, whatever. Okay, in 2008, a Texas man and his girlfriend performed what they called an exorcism on their 13-month-old daughter. They said they needed to get the demons out of her, and it ended in the baby's death. The forensic pathologist was unable to determine a specific cause of death because there were so many fatal injuries to this baby. It was a 30-hour exorcism that involved biting, strangling, mutilating, and beating the victim. And they testified that they knew that the baby had demons in her because she kept lying. Lying. So that means they said, did you take the cookie? And she said, no. Demon. Now, this was their third story when it came out, when they were trying to explain how this toddler died in their care. So it's possible They pulled a Ronnie DeFeo and they blamed demons to cover up the fact that they are monsters. But the man's last words before he was executed last month, he was just executed. He said, "If any of you would like to see me again, I implore all of you, no matter who you are, to accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and then we will meet again." Absolutely chilling and disgusting. Okay? So clearly there was faith in there somewhere, okay, behind what he was doing. So let's step out of the news, okay? Because I like to look also for any sort of scholarly work that will back this up. That means these are peer-reviewed scholarly papers. In 2022, there was a scholarly paper that looked at the case of a 9-year-old child who underwent a 2-day exorcism that involved the child being caned and then given a mixture of medicinal syrups to drink. The child died, and the autopsy revealed aspiration pneumonia, abrasions, contusions, subcutaneous hemorrhages, and burns to the body. The review of the literature showed too many cases of children being tortured and murdered in the name of exorcising demons or witchcraft from the victim, and often it was found that the child who was being possessed had autism, epilepsy, Down syndrome, hearing, vision, or speech difficulties, or learning disabilities. It is so bad that the United Kingdom has an actual plan in place for child abuse related to faith. Directly from this plan, from the UK government website, I'm going to read to you a tiny part of their action plan. And again, all of my resources are listed in a Google Doc that is in the video description. So you can go see the whole thing if you'd like to, but we're going to read this. Sometimes a faith leader or other influential figure is at the center, promoting the belief and methods of resolving the supposed problem by harming the children. Parents or carers have also been key perpetrators in many of the known cases. This can make the abuse harder to find out about, harder to get evidence to prosecute, and harder to prevent in the future. There's also the internal logic of the belief, which in the case of spirit possession, for example, is that the child is the victim of supernatural force and the abuse is therefore understood by perpetrators as a means of saving the child, driving out the devil. In other words, perpetrators may perversely believe that they are doing the right thing. Even where there is no intention to save the child, the belief that the child can harm others can generate a real fear in those who would normally be expected to protect the child, which includes parents or close family. This fear that a child may cause harm to or kill siblings, parents, or other family or friends can be a critical factor in the abuse. Now, if you don't understand what I just said, what they're saying is that their research in all of the cases that they have dealt with is that oftentimes the people who are hurting these children through ritual or exorcism truly believe that the child is under the influence of demons or witches, that this child may hurt themselves or others, and that what they're doing to the child is saving them and saving mankind and the fight for good. And that is what is so scary about these things. And the media can't stop fueling the flames because fear sells. Attorney John Whitehead explained that The Exorcist was a cultural breakpoint when it released in the 70s. It essentially told the susceptible masses that science and medicine could not be relied upon to save you. So if you remember, go back and watch it, and you'll see this in a lot of these demonic possession movies. I took them to the doctor. I got 100 doctors to look at them. I got 100 tests. Nothing could save me. Nothing could help me. I went to professors. They couldn't help me. It wasn't until I went to the church that my child was saved. This is the story we see all the time. Peter Blatty, who was the author of the book, even said he wrote the book to either strengthen your faith in the Lord or bring you running to him. He specifically wrote the book to manipulate you into having bigger faith or having faith at all. And when I say faith, I mean faith in the Christian God.
That the power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
The whole point was to manipulate your inner belief system towards a certain faith. That is exactly what he said the book was all about. He said, I did not mean to write a horror. I actually meant to write something that would solidify faith in humankind. And it helped turn a little burning flame into a forest fire of fear. That's a good alliteration. If you have seen my Satanic Panic episode from last year, then you know how bad things were in the 80s and 90s. And listen, it's still pretty bad, but there is nothing like what was happening in the 80s and 90s, where I was raised by a satanic cult, was on every talk show. There was accusations that kids were undergoing ritual abuse in daycares. There were teenagers accused of murder, and everyone said it was because they listened to Metallica and Satan had gotten a hold of them. And Satan was trying to get your kids through D&D and Harry Potter and Pokemon and blah, 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 blah. So
I do not think that many parents are aware of what's inside the game. In fact, in my presentation, I show many pictures from the inside the books, just to show the images of this game. I mean, the gruesomeness of this game and the occult link to it.
The satanic salute and the unicorn, flying horse, rainbows. Of course, that's the New Age symbols. Enchantments, fetishes, potions, spells, Dungeons and Dragons, occult games like that, psychic readings, reincarnation, pyramid, clairaudience, mental science, false visions, superstitions, amulets, talismans, Satanism, karma. These are some of the occult spirits. Now, if you've dabbled in any of these, then you're cursed. Your children are cursed. Your grandchildren are cursed. Your great-grandchildren are cursed. Now, there is a way to take care of that, and we're going to do that.
No, it was so bad. It was a frenzy of Christianity versus the devil. And it was in every aspect of society. They believed that McDonald's was sending money to the Church of Satan. They believed that Procter & Gamble was sending money to the Church of Satan, and that their logo was a sign of their love for Satan. I mean, it was insane, okay? And that time created so much trauma for so many people, and there are people who are still stuck in that mindset today, or still being victimized by it today. Right now, at the time of me recording this, you can actually go to the Order of Exorcists website and see all the priests who are trained and ready to perform an exorcism for you or someone that you believe is possessed. Now, is it all bad? No. If you're sick or you're suffering and prayer helps you, then it's helpful and it's self-care, and do it. Do it, okay? If prayer helps you, if singing hymns helps you, do it. But like anything, when it comes to these situations, when it comes to demonic possession and rituals to free you from evil and blah, 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 please be aware, be educated, be safe, and know what is hurting you versus what is helping you. That's all I'm saying. So I told you this was a quick one. It was just a little dip. I like to use these October episodes to sort of explore and discuss and learn. That's all I'm doing. I'm just shining a little tiny spotlight on the idea of exorcisms and where it came from. Next week, we're going to have more fun. I promise. Next week will not be so heavy. It will be fun. So we're returning to what I know best, which is good old history, and not just history, but vampires. And like I said, we are talking about Elizabeth Bathory and Vlad Tepes. We're going to wrap up Spooky Month in the biggest way as I prepare for the Vampire Masquerade Ball in New Orleans. I'd love to hear what you guys thought about this episode. Did you absolutely hate it and you never want to talk about matters of faith again? Let me know. Are you interested and you want me to talk more about certain aspects of these things? Let me know. I think one day I'd like to do an episode on voodoo or hoodoo. I'm very interested in that subject as well. Let me know. Let me know what you guys would be interested in. As always, thank you for joining me. I hope you're having an amazing October. The weather here is absolutely beautiful, so I hope you're having the same thing. I think I'm gonna go make a fire pit. I hope you join me next week. I hope you keep coming back every week because I love doing this. And as always, I love all of you. And I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.
And big finish. Thank you.